The weightlifting belt is overrated because most people don't need to be wearing it.
And your channel is overrated because most people don't need to be watching it. See, I can use circular logic too. What's up guys, Enkiri here, and for some reason YouTube decided that I should know about this guy, Coach Mario Rios. I'm not sure why the algorithm blessed me with Coach Rios' content, but here we are, and it doesn't disappoint. Mario has certainly taken advantage of the shorts format by posting numerous flashy and spicy hot takes, and the one that really caught the brunt of my ire was this one in particular.
The weightlifting belt is overrated because most people don't need to be wearing it. The belt is meant to increase intra-abdominal pressure, but your body can do that by itself. And when wearing a belt, you're not activating the ab musculature optimally. And despite using the belt to increase safety, if you get accustomed to using it, you increase your chance of injury when not wearing it. The NSCA only recommends you wear a belt when lifting 85% or more of your 1 rep max. In my opinion, if you're not lifting over 275 on deadlift or squats, you shouldn't even be getting near a belt.
So let's just jump right into it. For starters, you have to provide some context here, man. Belts are overrated. Okay, maybe not. It depends on who you are talking to and what their goal is. If you're interested in building as much strength as possible or building as much muscle as possible, then a belt is not overrated by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it is a tool that will help you build more of these things in the long run. Therefore, it is completely the exact opposite of being something that would be overrated. Now, if you're interested in the exact specifics of why this is, I would recommend reading Greg Nuckols' fantastic article called The Belt Bible. It explains these things in great detail, the specifics of exactly how belts allow you to accomplish this, the goals of building more strength, more muscle as separate entities and as synchronous entities, right? In short, however, belts allow for increased loading, right? You can lift heavier weights with a belt when you know how to use one properly. Or if you want to lift the same weight, you can get more reps with that weight. Or you can get in more total training volume while incurring less total fatigue. They also allow you to create greater muscle activation in the legs, even at equivalent loading levels on the squat, something I find very interesting. And they also potentially increase rectus abdominis activity as well. All of these points are demonstrated in different studies cited by Greg in his article. He concludes, it is very unlikely that squatting and deadlifting with a belt, quote, makes your core weak or hinders gains in torso strength as well, considering all of the aforementioned benefits of belts, that is, moving more weight for the same number of reps, moving the same weight for more reps, or moving the same weight for the same reps while incurring less fatigue per set, therefore allowing for more total volume. You would be a fool not to take advantage of them unless you have a problem with exploiting the two most potent factors for long-term strength gains, volume and intensity. And if so, that's your issue, end quote. So are belts overrated? No, they help make your training more productive and they provide you with a valuable tool to become bigger and stronger in the long run than you could have become without it. Personally, I do not believe that my legs would have ever been able to get strong enough to generate the force required to stand up with 530 pounds on my back if I had never used a belt, right? I believe that the long-term force production potential of my legs was augmented by my belt usage over the years. Now, are there instances where certain people probably shouldn't use a belt? Almost certainly. But to say that they are overrated and most people don't need to be wearing them is simply a disingenuous hot take that is going to encourage a great many people to actually shortchange their own long-term gains.
The belt is meant to increase intra-abdominal pressure, but your body can do that by itself.
I think everyone knows that you can create intra-abdominal pressure without a belt. If you couldn't, then you would herniate a disc in your spine every time you took a shit. The point of the belt is not to magically create some physical capability that the body lacks, but rather to augment one that it already possesses, which is the generation of intra-abdominal pressure, or IAP. And the belt does this very well. Now, not to lean too heavily on Greg Nuckols, it's just he dissected this topic so well and so thoroughly, and he did it so long ago at this point that I hate to see flashy hot takes like this one now getting so much attention again and really kind of undoing the work of such valuable pieces of content as his. So I really do want to kind of highlight it a little bit. Anyway, not to lean too heavily on it though, but again, the research that he points to does make it quite clear that the amount of intra-abdominal pressure that can be generated with a belt is vastly greater than beltless. This has nothing to do with lacking the ability to generate IAP beltless, and everything to do with the fact that the belt is simply very effective at accomplishing its primary goal when used properly. Its primary goal, which is to help you generate more intra-abdominal pressure. And ultimately, any coach worth his salt is going to ensure that his clients are not growing to use the belt as a crutch. Personally, after explaining the benefits to my clients, I let people choose for themselves whether they eventually even want to use a belt or not, right? I'll tell them flat out, I think it's going to help you make better progress over time, but if you don't want to use one, don't use it. But regardless, almost everybody I coach starts beltless and masters intrinsic stabilization patterns before we start using external aids like the belt.
When wearing a belt, you're not activating the ab musculature optimally.
This is not only basically untrue, it's also just an irrelevant point. As Nuckols demonstrated, there is potentially greater rectus abdominis activation when you are wearing a belt as opposed to when you're going beltless, and there is no difference found in external oblique activation. Again, wearing a belt, quote unquote, Greg Nuckols, wearing a belt does not make your core weak or hinder gains in torso strength. That said, we do actually have to distinguish between the type of strength and engagement patterns that we're talking about, right? If we're talking about purely using the core to brace, i.e. creating torso stiffness during squats and deadlifts, then the abdominal muscles, which are spinal flexors, are highly overrated in this regard anyway, right? Because you're not flexing the spine during these activities, you are actively extending it, right? So your goal with bracing is not to learn how to use those muscles, rather is to learn how to use the deep core musculature, the muscles that literally surround and wrap around your spine in order to brace and create that IAP. And belted or not, this fact doesn't really change. On the other hand, if we're talking about building the local strength or size of the superficial abdominal muscles, then we probably do need to incorporate some form of spinal flexion activity, such as sit-ups, right? You can't really create hypertrophy or dynamic strength unless you're actually using the dynamic function of the muscle. Now, if we're talking about building what I would call functional strength through the core region, then we probably need the thing you would consider more like athletic, right? Or shoring up energy leaks through the lower body into the upper body. In this case, I've talked about this in the past, we probably want to incorporate things like anti-exercise, anti-core exercises, right? So anti-extension, anti-rotation, anti-lateral flexion. So in this case, think of things like abdominal rollouts or suitcase carries or anything where the loading is asymmetrical from one side to another, or Palloff presses where you're resisting against rotation. But basically the point is, if you want to engage your abs, then engage your abs, right? If you want to engage your biceps, then you do curls, not fucking leg extensions. And if you want to engage your abs, then you do ab work, not squats. So this whole point is moot.
And despite using the belt to increase safety, if you get accustomed to using it, you increase your chance of injury when not wearing it.
You are not using the belt for safety, and if you're under this impression, then you need to go back to school and do some learning, all right? You should be able to lift heavy objects safely with or without a belt, right? You're using the belt to enhance performance and improve long-term progress. And if you're training appropriately, that is, you have mastered the art of bracing irrespective of belt usage, and you're taking care of your direct core and abdominal training, then there's absolutely no reason why you would be at a higher risk of suffering a back injury when you're not wearing the belt. It makes no sense at all. Personally, I've been using a belt for over 10 years now, and I have never suffered a back injury during my 15 years of training outside of a very minor erector strain that I got from doing a belted front squat of all things. I hurt my back wearing the belt, not when the belt was taken off.
If you're not lifting over 275 on deadlift or squats, you shouldn't even be getting near a belt.
Now, this is just an arbitrary guideline that's really based on nothing. So does this standard apply for 200-pound men the same as it does for 100-pound women? What about a 20-year-old versus a 70-year-old? So my 68-year-old 120-pound mother shouldn't put on a belt until she can squat 275 pounds, which means she's never going to be ready to wear a belt, according to Coach Mario here. But a 20-year-old 200-pound dude who I could potentially have squatting 275 in a month, maybe a fucking week, is going to be ready to wear that belt basically right away. This makes no sense, man. You learn how to brace intrinsically, and then if you want to use a belt to augment your training and bolster your progress, then you should do it. You should buy one, and you should learn how to use it. And that is an important part to note here as well, because there is a learning curve to belt usage. Not everyone is going to benefit from it greatly or at all right away, because it does often take time to figure out how to use it, right? How to use the tool to its maximum benefit and really gain large increases in intra-abdominal pressure from it. Anyway, all told, this is just a very, very incomplete hot take from Coach Mario here. You really, in my opinion, shouldn't make pieces like this in short form content, because it's impossible to distinguish between all the contingencies that need to be noted when you're talking about a topic like this and you only have 60 seconds to do so. It just leaves no room for nuance, and instead what we have now is 16,000 people who liked this video and probably won't use a belt, even though the majority of those 16,000 people will probably make better gains in the long term by learning how to use a belt properly. If you want to hear the real deal, the real take on belt usage, I would encourage you to go read Greg Knuckles' article, The Belt Bible. It's linked below in the description. Check it out. Anyway, discouraging that many people from using a tool that could potentially be very valuable for them, it's just a bummer, man. So share this video, spread the good word, guys. Please remember to smash the like button before you go. Leave me some love in the comments down below. Check out EnkiriFitness.com for online coaching and training programs. And as always, keep training hard. I will catch you guys next time.